Hi guys, my name's Sarah King. I'm Head of Client Care and Advice at StockSpot. We're an online investment advisor and we are on a mission to make investing accessible to everyday Australians. Now today we're celebrating International Women's Day and I'm delighted to have a special guest with us, Queenie Tan, who is here to talk about the importance of investing and what International Women's Day actually means to us. So Queenie, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what International Women's Day means to you?
Sure, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here and to talk to your viewers. What International Women's Day means to me, I guess it means celebrating women and their achievements, and I think that it's really important to do that and to celebrate those achievements because sometimes they can get lost, in the world and everything that's happening, and it's just nice to appreciate how far we've come.
Absolutely. And guys, if you haven't checked out any of Queenie's content, I recommend it. She's got a fantastic channel on YouTube, so definitely check it out. For me, in terms of International Women's Day, so I completely agree it's a day for celebrating the amazing, inspirational women in our lives. And I also think looking back over the past century and reflecting on how much progress women have made from a social, economic and political standpoint, but also acknowledging that there's still a long way to go. We're still seeing gender pay gaps, superannuation gaps. So I think today is a great way for raising awareness on those things. And something I'm very passionate about is educating all Australians on financial literacy. And I think women in investing is something close to my heart. So I see today as a way that we can amplify that message and show that investing is in fact a great way for women to bridge some of those gaps and potentially lead more financially secure and empowered lifestyles. Yeah, so just on that, Queenie, I'm sure you're a very savvy investor. Would you like to share a couple of the best investing tips that you've received, since you started investing?
I think the most important one is to just start. It may seem really scary, and I think that if you can come up with a number of reasons why you shouldn't start investing. If you research online, there are always news outlets that will tell you that the market is too high, or investing is too expensive, or you might be too late to get into the market. But what I've definitely learned is it's never too late to start, and the most important thing is just to start. And another thing that I've learned is it's important to stick to your strategy. So come up with an investing strategy, whether you want to invest monthly or weekly, and set aside how much money you can invest, and just keep doing it. No matter what the market's doing, just keep investing and sticking to your strategy. And those are the two things that I definitely learned. It can get really easy to start buying into all of the noise out there, but the more that you can block it out and just stick to your plan, I think that's definitely something that's helped me.
Yeah, fantastic tips there, and that's certainly something I speak to a lot of our investors about every single day. For me, in terms of some of the top ones, for me, being quite a risk-averse investor, and naturally women tend to be more risk-averse, and that's what can stop us from starting investing in the first place, as you said. I think diversification is super important, and that's where you spread your money across a number of different investments, things like shares and international shares, bonds and maybe gold or something like that, and that's a great way to help reduce the amount of risk you're taking, and it means that you can sleep a bit easier at night knowing that you're not going to have these big volatile swings in your portfolio. And then another one for me is the beauty of index investing, which I know you talk about in some of your YouTube channels. And index investing is a way that you can just buy a whole asset class or get exposure to a whole market, and it means you don't have to worry about picking stocks. You've got exposure to them all, and that way, you're always going to have the winners in your portfolio. And I think those two things combined, for me, certainly mean that I can sleep better at night, and I don't have to be worried about the day-to-day management of my portfolio, and I tend to want to stay the course longer, which is exactly what you mentioned as one of your tips. So awesome. Now, on the flip side of that, I'm sure you might have received some not so great financial tips. So can you tell me one or two of those?
Like you said about diversification, I think that some of the investing mistakes that I've made is not diversifying enough, or just kind of going all in on something that's super risky and speculative, like cryptocurrency or something like that. I think it is important to have a bit of a mix in your portfolio. So especially if you are more risk adverse and you will get emotional if you do have a crazy high and a crazy low. Having diversification in your portfolio can, like you said, help you sleep better at night. So I think that diversification is something that I've definitely learned. And I think another, I guess, investing mistake and bad investing advice that I've learned is just taking too much input from everywhere, because I think everybody has an opinion about investing, and it all changes depending on who you talk to. Like, there are some people that will talk to you about, I don't know, the housing market is the best investment that you can make, hands down. Talk to other people, or say Afterpay is the best investment you can make, hands down. And I think it's you should be quite careful about who you listen to, and kind of take everybody's advice with a grain of salt. But what I've definitely learned is it is important to listen to people, obviously, but to make up your own mind and to learn from your experiences, based on your own experiences, because we can all have completely different, I guess, investing experiences based on the time that we're investing in. For example, the housing market is very different today than what it was in our parents' generation, so maybe they have different advice for us opposed to what's happening right now. And we will all have different experiences with our investing. So I think the most important thing is just to start. You might make some mistakes, but you'll learn from those mistakes. And yeah, that's something that I've learned.
Yeah, fantastic. And I agree, like, there is just so much overwhelm out there, and often we get the opinions of our parents and our family, and it can be things like, keep your savings in a savings account long term, and that's actually not great advice. So yeah, very valid points. And I think it's very important to do your own due diligence, and as you said, learn from your own experiences. And for me, I actually had an experience where prior to the global financial crisis in 2008, I actually borrowed money to invest. That was money that I didn't necessarily have. And as we all know, in 2008, the share market took a massive tumble, and I was getting calls from my margin lender provider to top that up by thousands of dollars. And that was money that I didn't have at the time, and money that I wanted to use to go traveling. And the lesson there for me was that I was taking on far more risk than I should have for my life stage, but also you shouldn't necessarily invest money you don't have. So I think you really need to be careful, and that was a lesson where margin lending is great. You know, you can borrow money to invest to amplify your gains, but on the flip side, it can amplify your losses. So similar to what we're seeing with people speculating in cryptocurrency and risky assets, I think, yeah, just be really prudent, and you know, if that's what you're going to do, make sure it's a small part of your portfolio so that you're not taking on that unnecessary amount of risk. Wonderful. Now, in light of International Women's Day, if there was one thing you would tell the audience today that they could do to improve their personal finances, to set themselves up for a better financial well-being, what would that be?
Something that's really helped me sleep better at night is having an emergency fund.
Yep.
I think that when you are investing all of your money, and money that you can't really spare and you might need in the short term, it's not a great feeling. So I think having a buffer and an emergency fund is so important. And I think if 2020 has taught us anything, it's so important to have an emergency fund or some sort of financial cushion. And an emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of your living expenses saved somewhere liquid. So I don't put my emergency fund in the stock market, because if I have to pull it out to pay for, I don't know, some emergency that pops up, I might pull it out at a bad time and lose money. So I have it in cash, I have it in a high interest savings account, so I can use it at any time. And it makes me feel good going to work every day, knowing that if I get fired tomorrow, I'll be okay for another 6 months, and that will give me enough time to sort out my financial situation. So it really, really helps to have that buffer, and I think that's definitely the best thing that I've learned.
Yeah, and that's such good advice, and you know, that is fundamental, and something that I talk to a lot of our clients about every day. Before you start investing, always have that emergency cash buffer, because you don't want to have to draw down on your investments. And as you said, COVID, a lot of people were caught short, they didn't have that emergency buffer, so proactively building that is empowering, and it can be a great reliever of stress as well. And I think for me, it's superannuation. You know, this is an investment, and potentially one of the biggest investment of many of us will ever have, is showing your super some love. And I think make sure you are in a low fee super fund. And by low fee, I mean you're paying less than 1% in total fees per annum. And what you can do is contact your fund and request an outline of all of the fees that you're paying, because any extra percentage that you're paying, that can actually cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of your life. So that very small act today of contacting your fund, doing a bit of an assessment, if you're paying more than 1%, then you might need to consider looking at an alternative fund and making sure that you're getting that total fee rate down to 1%.
That's good tip. I actually wanted to mention APRA has a heat map tool, which I found really helpful to see where your fund is performing. So if it's got high fees, it actually lists what all the fees are for the top super funds in Australia. And I think they're even coming out with some more interactive tools later this year in a couple of months' time. So that will be cool. So you could actually maybe log on one day potentially to see how your super fund is performing and compare it on an interactive tool. So
Brilliant, that's brilliant. And I think that's what consumers need, because there's so much lack of transparency in that space, and this is your hard-earned money that you need for your retirement. So brilliant advice. We can share a link to that tool later if we need to. Now to finish off for today, actually, I've got a better question. If there was one thing you could tell your younger self today about investing, what would that be?
That's a really tough question. I think the one piece of advice would be that it's so important that I have started young. I'm so grateful that I did start at quite a young age, and I didn't have very much money at the time, and at the time I was kind of thinking like, what's the point? Like, I only have a few $1,000s to invest. Like, is it really worth it? You know, like putting myself through all this risk, having to set up a stock spot account and going through that process. I only have $5,000 and I can't really invest that much money each month. Yeah. But I'm so happy that I started early, even when I didn't have a lot of money, because it starts to build your confidence, you know, once you start to make that small investment. You can start to see your wealth build, and it gives you that confidence to keep going. So I think I would just reassure myself that it will get easier. It seems very overwhelming when you're starting investing, but you will pick it up. You will start to learn more, and it's a journey, and it's an exciting journey. It seems scary at the time. You might think that you'll never understand everything, but eventually one day you will. So, yeah. Brilliant.
That's fantastic. And I think certainly knowing that you can start small is a really, really good thing to know, and just drip feeding your way. And so brilliant advice there. And I think for me, it's very much around, if I could tell myself, my younger self something, it would be that it's really healthy to take some risk, and you can take measured risk through diversifying. And I kept my money in savings for far too long, you know, afraid of taking too much risk. And what you realize is with a savings account, your money's not growing ahead of inflation, you know, it's going backwards, you know, you're paying tax at your marginal rate, and it's not going to allow you to fund your goals in the future. So I think it's very healthy I call it a bit of a risk reframe. Like, you can manage your risk through diversification. And I think, if I had have started in my early 20s like yourself, I would have had decades more of compound growth, and that is like magic, you know. It's really going to amplify that pool of money you can have in the future. So definitely, it's definitely healthy to take some risk and start as soon as you can, and just let diversification do its thing.
So true.
Fantastic. Well, in spirit of International Women's Day, I wanted to thank you so much for joining us. Guys, definitely check out Queenie's channel. She's got so much great content. If you have any questions, please write comments in the box below, and we'll catch you later, and have a happy International Women's Day.
Thank you for having me. See you.
Bye.